This is a Lego clone. Oh, that's cursed. And in this video, I'm going to be building each season of Clone Wars in Lego. Let's get started. For Season 1 of Clone Wars, I'm going to be building the Liberation of Ryloth. For the build, I want to make sure to capture a part of the capital wall. I started this mock off by plating it off, then I started on the terrain area. I decided instead of just having medium nougat as the only color, to add in some dark tan to really spice up the terrain. I designed this build to where it looks like it's on a hill, so I had to add some extra support bricks into the middle. Once the terrain was done, I decided to play around with some different techniques to get the wall looking how I wanted it to. Once that was finished, it was smooth sailing from there. Overall, I think this build turned out really nice. I think the different colored land accents add a lot. And although the wall is simple, I think adding that little part of the wall that was sticking out keeps it from looking too bland. And I think the elevated look that I was going for really turned out nice. Yep, just what it needed. For Season 2, I'm going to be building the second Battle of Geonosis. This planet has all you could ask for: zombie bugs, orange sand, and a really big secret. For this build, I started off similar to the first, but sadly, I'm really limited with dark orange pieces. But working with what I had, I started tiling off the top, leveling up the backside, and then I added the finishing details. Then added the figure, and with that, the mock is done. Considering the lack of parts, I think this turned out really good. I think if I do this again, I might add a few explosions though. For this build, I'm going to be building a scene where Fives throws a grenade in the episode Citadel Rescue. For this build, I wanted to capture the rocky landscape of the Citadel with different slopes and tiles. I also wanted to include the iconic tilted rock spires from the Citadel. Building the spires didn't take too much time, but putting them in a tilted angle took a little bit to do and was a little tricky. It's a little messy, but still I think turned out really cool. Then I got the 20th anniversary Fives, which in my opinion is a great figure, except for his backpack, which I switched out for a custom that I had built, which makes him look much better. Then I placed him on the build. I think I captured the key elements of this scene very nicely, like the angle of the rock spires and the exploding droids. The 4 Umbara episodes are some of the saddest in Clone Wars, so let's recreate them. Specifically this very popular scene. No, not gonna cry, not gonna cry. I started by making the front section, then I covered the rest of the build in plates. Then after adding the last few pieces to the front section, I started on tiling off the flat ground area. Then finished off the build with those creepy tentacles. Then I took all the clone helmets off and added the clones to the scene. Building the scene was very fun and super nostalgic for me, and I think if I saw this build, I'd know what scene it was. I think this tire technique works really well for the tentacle-like plants, and I even recreated the famous photo. Well, it's famous in my book. For Season 4, I want to build a scene from an episode you may not remember. That's because Sunny Day in the Void is probably one of the worst episodes in Clone Wars. But it's the only thing I could really find, so I'm going to build it anyways. The color of this planet is a little bit interesting, so I went with the best match I had in my parts. The scene I'm replicating is a scene from the city where R2-D2 is hiding from some droids. Now that the build is complete, we can add in R2-D2 hiding and some droids all confused. Oh no, my head. I really like how this build turned out, and I think I captured the key details of the scene really well, such as the lines on the ground and the cool pattern on the wall. I also decided to add some slopes to where the building meets the ground. In Season 6, there's 2 episodes where Rush Clovis betrays Padme Amidala and wipes out a ton of her Coruscant guards, so let's recreate that. For this scene, I went with a more city look because of the platform it takes place on. Then built up this checkered formation where I want to do a really interesting floor technique, where I put some ingot tiles sideways to make a really cool floor design. Then I placed in some metal scraps. Then I got some of my Coruscant guard troopers, and then I got this really cool 501st trooper with custom arm printing. Then I placed them each on the mock. Overall, I think this build turned out really good, and although it doesn't have like a structure or anything, I think the ground technique gives it a ton of depth. And I built the aftermath, so this is the scene where Anakin and the 501st come to rescue Padme Amidala. The obvious pick for Season 7 is the attack on Mandalore. Key details I want to include is Gar Saxon and the iconic Mandalorian buildings. I started this mock off by doing the front section very sleek-like with a bunch of different tiles, as well as adding these cool little 3 canister things. Once I finished tiling off the floor, I moved on to the building section. I wanted these buildings to be super similar to the show, so I went with the square look with a ton of tiles on it. I also made sure to include the blue windows. And now we can add in the minifigs. This build turned out fantastic and probably is my favorite out of the entire video. I think I captured the blocky buildings really well while keeping it really detailed, and I think I captured the scene really nicely. And now every single build is done, and now we are ready to assemble them all. Having these all lined up is so satisfying, and seeing each season's build lined up like this makes all the effort and work I put into it totally worth it. Wait, that's not a clone.